It's time to explore melody again. We last left off in this series with major. And now, we're moving on to Mixolydian, a slightly different sound. Get your notation paper and pencils ready. And we stress pencils. You might also want to follow along on our website, musicstudent101.com. This is Music Student 101. And now your hosts, Jeremy Burns and Matthew Scott Phillips.
And welcome back to Music Student 101.
Welcome back.
Matt, how was your weekend?
Tiring. A little beat. It's a busy time in the semester, trying to push up to Thanksgiving holidays.
Oh, yes.
A lot of creating tests, giving tests, grading tests. A lot of stuff going on. So yeah, but we're making it through.
Nice. Do you guys do exams before Thanksgiving?
Yeah, it's kind of one of those big times. You know, most professors try to get a test in before the break. You know, because they're going to forget everything. Between over Thanksgiving holidays, it's all going to fly out of their head. And, so yeah, a lot of professors, myself included, seem to try to get one more good one in and then let them go.
Nice. Beware, students, you got one coming to you.
I hope they know by now.
I would hope so, too. Well, man, last night I had a pretty cool night. A late night, though. I played at Brennan's, this local pub, and there was a thing called the Punk Rock Arts Show.
I heard about that.
It was pretty cool. There's a guy named Brian Burks, who's a fantastic local artist, who gets a lot of his friends together, and they come out and set up little booths and stuff like that, while various and sundry punk rock bands play music. And there were some funny acts. I mean, some really dirty, filthy punk rock acts. Good time, man. It was pretty hilarious stuff. I will not quote you the names of some of the songs on this episode.
Yeah, tell me later.
We'll need an explicit warning. So that was a really cool experience, and I thought we'd be playing around midnight, be done by 1. I didn't get home until around 4.
Ooh.
So let's see if I can keep it together this episode.
Yeah. I was in Atlanta all day yesterday.
Oh, yeah. So you got the travel lag.
Kind of got a little bit of a travel hangover today, but yeah, we're making it through.
Well, let's talk a little bit about our goals for this episode.
Okay.
You may recall we've been kind of doing this melodic dictation thing a little more.
Yes.
I think that I might have subconsciously been trying to evade melody. You know?
Yeah. And harmony's more difficult for many people.
It doesn't seem like it is for me, though. Well, it's difficult.
Yeah.
I don't know which one's more difficult. Melody is slightly more difficult for me, so perhaps this is a little bit selfish, but I think our listeners might appreciate this as well. And where we did melodic dictation part 1 was just kind of an overview, and we used some major, possibly some minor examples. I can't quite recall.
I don't recall now, yeah.
But then part 2, we did an emphasis on the major scale, or the Ionian mode.
Right.
And this episode, we're going to talk about the Mixolydian mode.
Yes, and we have talked about what the modes are in the past. So
we actually did an episode on modes, didn't we?
So if you need a refresher, definitely go back and listen to that one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, episode number, whatever. I think it's just called the modes.
It's just called the modes, I think.
Yeah.
Get about 80 episodes in, you start forgetting what you've done.
Yeah, we start.
I'm sure I tell some of the same jokes over and over again, like it's all fresh and new.
Well, when we were on episode 11, it was easy to remember all of these. We're on episode, what? This is 80.
This is 82.
82, yeah. So it's starting to get a little fuzzy back there.
Right. So my goal is by the end of this episode, we will have been immersed in the Mixolydian mode. And
good.
Hopefully we'll have it kind of in our brains and in our heads a little bit.
Good, yeah, because it's a very important mode for any popular music. So
it seems it's pretty common. Mm-hmm. And often used in soloing techniques, it seems.
Very much so, yeah.
So We're going to get to that in just a little bit. Mm-hmm. But first, let us have some a social moment, if we will.
A little bit of a social moment. Let's read some reviews.
You want to take this new review, Matt?
Sure. So we have a new review, 5 stars, from Signore Fagiolo from the Netherlands.
It sounds Italian, right?
Sounds Italian, and then he's from the Netherlands. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Signore says, if you want to know more about how music works, give this one a spin. It doesn't matter if you already know a lot about music or you're just starting. This podcast will help you either way. So thanks so much, Signore. We aim to be helpful.
Kind words indeed.
Yes.
And why do we read these reviews?
To encourage you to leave one?
Yes.
Dear listeners?
Because it's not all about our egos. It also helps to boost our presence in the...
Right, which brings more people into our community, which makes our community stronger.
Making the world just a little more musical.
Just a little more musical every day.
Yeah, so thanks for helping us out with that, Signore. Did I say that right?
That's pretty good, yeah.
Pretty good, okay. Let us move on to our new Patreon patron.
Yes.
We have a new friend named Vaughn Colburn out of Sandy, Utah.
Oh, very nice. Welcome, Vaughn.
Yeah. Vaughn says, I actually like the heady stuff in your podcast. I'm a 35-year veteran of computer engineering and programming.
Very nice.
Haven't we talked about this? We have a lot of Patreon patrons in particular who are engineers.
Who are engineers, yeah.
So dig this, and this is going to bring it all together. He says, I miss the brain strain of that career, and you two are providing me with the mental exercise that I need.
Great. That's a little scary.
Isn't it? Retirement is keeping me busy, sometimes too busy, as my Patreon profile says. I'm just an old guy who is looking for the meaning of life in retirement.
Ah, well, you've come to the right place.
Well,
maybe.
he says, music, both theoretical, you guys, and practical, a bunch of internet resources, have become my go-to, giving me much joy. You guys rock, although sometimes it feels more like an avalanche. I've almost finished my first pass at listening to the podcast over the past 7 months.
Very nice.
But it's been more passive than active. I mean, I listen while doing other things. Which I think a lot of people do.
Sure.
Just to get it in their subconscious.
That's one of the great things about podcasts.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You don't have to you don't even have to tape it like we might have had to a long time ago. He says, the next pass will be at the keyboard while viewing your web pages so that I can take full advantage of what you provide and practice to and ensure that I understand what you're teaching.
Ah.
Now that's actually a very good approach in my mind.
I think so too, yeah.
Just to, kind of get a good run through and then actually sit down and analyze it.
Yeah, get one good run through so you sort of have this overview of the kinds of concepts to which you're being exposed. And then you can go back and go into them to the level of detail that is right for you. Yeah. That is a pretty good approach. He mentions the theoretical aspect of music and the practical aspect of music. And that kind of interests me, that concept. So there's a theoretical side of music theory, and then there's the practical side, sitting down and actually playing. I wonder if we could somehow add the emotional side, or maybe even the spiritual side, which is what you are getting out of music.
Right.
We all take it for granted that music enriches our life. We rarely sit down to ask ourselves why or how. And I wonder if there's good resources out there to help us sort of understand that. Or do you have to understand the theoretical and practical side first?
Gosh, I don't know.
Yeah.
But if you keep listening to Music Student 101...
it'll help.
It'll all come out in the wash. Somewhere down the line.
Somewhere down the line, yeah.
Different places and times for everybody, I imagine.
Yeah.
Myself included. Well, thanks again, Vaughn, for your Patreon patronage. And if you guys want to be like Vaughn, you can look us up on patreon.com/musicstudent101.
Indeed.
And find out more about the perks and everything.
There's all sorts of cool stuff you get for being a Patreon.
Indeed. So check it out. And thanks again, Vaughn. Now, we have ourselves a listener mail.
Wow, listener mail.
And I'm kind of excited about this because we're always happy to hear from younger listeners.
Indeed.
So you want to take this one, Matt?
Sure. This is from Meryl Hansen from Norway. And Meryl says, I'm a 15-year-old who just finished listening to your episode about the bass in Music Student 101. Have we only ever done one episode about the bass?
We did, actually.
Yeah.
And actually, I think, just a side note, we need to hit that again, because some people did mention that they wanted to hear, like, a non-bassist guide to the bass.
Well, we're not non-bassists.
I know.
But we can try.
But I think we can try. Anyways.
I think we can try, yeah.
So there's more to be said about the bass.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Okay.
Continue.
It was great. Well, thank you, Meryl.
Thank you.
I just want to tell you how much I appreciate and love your podcast. It's both entertaining and extremely informative to me. I'm mainly a pianist, but I know how to play guitar, and I'd love to pick up the violin or another string instrument. But anyways, the thing is that I love music, so I decided that I wanted to learn about music theory to understand better. This podcast has helped immensely and will continue to do that as a listen through the episodes I haven't heard yet. While I've read at sites, asked people, and watched YouTube videos, Music Student 101 has been the most effective and best method for learning about not only music theory, but about instruments, music culture, and loads of things. So that's all. Thank you so much for making it. You guys are awesome. Now, I'll be off to listen to your episode about modes. Thank you, a grateful pianist. Well, thank you, Meryl. Those are very kind words.
Yeah.
We've said this before, but one of the big reasons we started this podcast to begin with, way back when, was because we felt there was a dearth of deep music theory in the podcasting and online world.
Yeah.
There were a lot of things that could sort of cover the basics, but it seems like to me there was either stuff that's very, very, very basic, and then stuff designed for people who already knew everything, and you can talk about flat 9 substitutions and stuff like that on this. So we're trying to bridge the gap here.
Yeah, because that latter material is often delivered in a fashion that is far from entertaining.
Right. Yeah.
Or engaging.
Right.
Where we try and be a little bit more of that.
Yeah, and kind of try to make music human, maybe.
Yeah.
And a little less dry and a little more, because I certainly hope it comes through how much we enjoy music, playing it, thinking about it, listening to it.
Yapping about it.
Talking about it. My living, I talk about music. That's how I get paid, so...
82 episodes, I think, is some indication that we take a liking to music.
I hope so. And did we mention that we're bass players?
I don't know if we have.
Speaking of the bass.
At least not in 5 or 6 episodes.
Yeah, at least not. Yeah, so yeah, that's a subject near and dear to our hearts. And we should probably get back to inviting guests in. That's also something we haven't done in a while.
I know.
I think we exhausted all of our friends.
I know, right?
Those are all the people we could get to come down here.
So that's that.
Yeah.
Maybe we can look into Skyping or something like that,
Yeah, and we definitely have more ideas of people we'd like to bring in to talk about other instruments and other subjects in music. So yeah, we'll need to get back on that. Mm-hmm. We kind of got into our little bi-weekly routine of just me coming over here and doing a podcast. And,
yeah, right.
But yeah, thank you so much for your kind words, and keep listening.
Yes.
It just keeps going.
Well, shall we now get into this episode?
Let's get into this episode.
Again, just a little review. We more recently talked about the Ionian scale, or the major scale, or Ionian mode, I guess you would say.
The Ionian mode, which is the same thing as the major scale, for our purposes at any rate.
Let's hear that, shall we?
The good old Ionian mode. Yeah, and if that sounds depressingly familiar, is because, as we said, that is also the major scale, right?
Yeah.
The other modes, and if you want an in-depth discussion of this, be like Meryl and go listen to our podcast on modes.
Mm-hmm.
But to briefly sum up, so we have the 7 notes of the major scale, which is also called the Ionian mode, which is sort of we call it the first mode. And it has that particular construct of half steps and whole steps. So there's a half step between the 3rd and 4th note, and a half step between the 7th note and back up to the octave. And those half steps being in the exact places they are is what makes this Ionian mode / major scale and have the feel that it does, right? Mm-hmm. So if we take those same notes but just shift our starting note up, what happens is we shift where those half steps are in relation to the notes we started on, and that's how we get more modes.
Right.
And so the 2nd mode, Dorian, right? And then the 3rd mode, Phrygian, and the 4th mode, Lydian, and the one for today, Mixolydian, the 5th mode, and then the 6th, Aeolian, which is the same as natural minor, right? Just as the Ionian is the same as major. Mm-hmm. And then the much maligned Locrian 7th mode.
Yeah.
So we have, by just shifting our starting notes up, we have shifted where those half steps fall and created new modes, and we've ended up with 7. And they all have different modes, and they all have kind of different moods, different feels, are useful in different contexts, right?
Very cool. And the reason that I'm going straight from major to Mixolydian, if you happen to listen to these in sequence, because I'm fully aware that all of our part 1s and part 2s are scattered all over.
Yeah.
You have to flip around and find the part 1s in the sequence.
Yeah.
But that's okay, because while you're doing that, you're going to scrub over all kinds of other
all kinds of other
topics
fun stuff
that you might stop and see. But if you listen to the major mode episode or the major scales episode before this, melodic dictation specifically,
right.
part 2, you'll notice there's only one note difference between that and this.
Right. So there happens to be, and so first of all of these notes, I played that using C major scale and just shifted my starting note, C to C, D to D, E to E, etc., to create all these modes. All of these modes are also transposable to all the 12 different starting pitches. Mm-hmm. You know, just play the half steps in the right place, you know, and we can create 12 versions of Dorian and Phrygian and Lydian, just like we can create 12 versions of the major scale.
Yes.
Right? Really more than that. Really 15 technically when you get into inharmonic equivalence, but let's not digress.
No.
So when you're playing around with Mixolydian mode, it turns out that there is exactly, as you say, one half note. It turns out it is exactly as you say, one note's difference between that and the major scale, the Ionian mode, in any transposition on any starting note, and that note is the 7th degree, the 7th scale degree, which is a half step below tonic in major, right? But is a whole step below tonic in the Mixolydian mode. You know, and that primary difference is what is going to define whether you are in a Ionian mode / major scale, or if you are in fact in Mixolydian.
You know what a funny thing for me is, when you're playing that scale, and by the time I'm at the 6th note, I really just feel like I'm in major, and so you really have to kind of squint your ears to hear that flat 7 difference between the leading tone. Now, the leading tone to me, after hearing it so many times, has become kind of obvious.
Yeah, kind of prevalent.
Yeah. But still, if I'm hearing someone soloing in Mixolydian, I might in my head think they're just soloing in major. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's, you know, when you're just playing up the scale like that, it really does. There really is little difference. You know, you're playing a half step between 6 and 7 versus a half step between 7 and the octave. Yeah. Which, like we said, half steps fall in different places, and you know, and when you're actually playing around in Mixolydian mode, it gets a little more. It gets a little more obvious, right? Versus that was major scale, right?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, the 5th is actually minor. The 5 chord is actually minor in Mixolydian. So.
Really?
which is neat, right?
Very neat.
Yeah.
It sounds kind of ancient.
It should, because these modes, all of them, were far more prevalent in the Middle Ages and Renaissance, before the major scale kind of took over everything. Ionian mode was actually not a super common mode in like Gregorian chant or Renaissance polyphony. Mixolydian was far more common in those. So so kind of sound.
Yeah.
It's also very prevalent in all the music in the Legend of Zelda games, and it kind of makes me think of Legend of Zelda now.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, but that's just me.
No, many people are familiar with that game, I believe.
Yeah.
Now, are you talking about old school Legend of Zelda, like Nintendo?
Oh, all of them, really.
They do? Okay, the
Yeah, all
Ocarina
of
of
them,
Time?
really. Yeah, Ocarina of Time especially.
Was that
yeah.
Little Tune Mixolydian?
Yeah,
that might have been Lydian, if memory serves. I can't remember.
Well, the guy that wrote the music that you have to play on the ocarina, he only had 5 notes to work with, right? Because you only had like 5 buttons or something. He only had like 5 or 6 notes, so he got very creative. But so there were a lot of modes used. But yeah, there were definitely some that were. Yeah, that might have been like the Fire Palace or something. Yeah.
Pentatonic combinations.
Actually, no. That was the Fire Palace.
Wow.
It's amazing the things that get stuck in your brain.
I know, that's pretty impressive.
One of those, though, was definitely Mixolydian mode, and there's a lot of just, in the, yeah.
Yeah. So. Well, let me play a couple of examples here. Just to kind of get it further in our heads. These are going to be some more popular kind of rock examples and stuff.
Yeah, and a lot of the repertoire from Mixolydian mode is going to come from rock and blues and country and things like that, right?
Yeah.
Ocarina of Time.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Was that the Ocarina of Time?
Trying.
That does sound familiar.
Things that stay stuck in your brain sometimes.
Well, I'm sure a good deal of these examples are stuck in some people's brains. I have my guitar here. The first example I have, this is just a combination of me thinking of songs I know and then reading other people's suggestions for Mixolydian.
Yep.
One or two I might have had some questions about, and we can address those in a second.
Okay.
But one of the first ones here is many people are familiar with the Grateful Dead, which is the Fire on the Mountain song.
Yeah.
So it's in D major.
Yeah.
Na 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 na. So it's fire on the mountain.
Good song.
Right? And so on. So the chords going back and forth. The song pretty well establishes the key of D.
D major, yeah.
However, instead of moving to some kind of, we're actually moving to a C major chord.
Yeah.
So really the Mixolydian-ishness is really more in the harmony than in the melody. Because I think the melody is actually fire, na 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 na.
Oh, that's the root note.
In the key of D. I'm starting on the A note.
Oh.
Fire on the mountain. But they are harmonizing all the way through it. So
yeah.
When you hear them sing it, you'll probably hear fire on the mountain. So you'll hear that flat 7 in there.
Yeah, you'll hear it.
Yeah. So there's one example. Another similar example is, and it's the same kind of thing with these chord progressions, L.A. Woman by The Doors.
Yep.
I don't know what all he's saying. It's a lot of really fast, bluesy, marble mouth Jim Morrison stuff. But
right.
It goes kind of like A, the verse. City of night. City of night. So the verse again, just vamping on that A. City of night to G.
G, yeah.
Again, that flat 7.
One
chord.
to flat 7, yeah, is going to be the thing. Flat 7 is also a note out of the blues scale.
Uh-huh.
And that could be how its influence worked its way into so much of rock and roll, is from the blues.
Particularly the Doors.
Mm-hmm.
Very blues-inspired music.
Mm-hmm.
What's another one? Oh, hey, Matt, you got this one? The theme from Star Trek.
The theme from Star Trek. Okay, so... Oops. Something like that.
Uh-huh. The main thing about that being we kind of use that to identify when we were using the examples or the references.
Yep.
We were using that to identify the flat 7 itself.
Yeah.
Right.
So we could think of this as a Mixolydian mode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. With a little bit of chromaticism in there. Chromatic passing tone.
Passing tones, okay. Yeah. So there's one.
Yeah.
All of our Star Trek fans. Another good one. Most people are familiar with Hey Jude by the Beatles, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, not during the actual verse and chorus of the song. That's all pretty diatonic. However, at the very end of the song, and I think we've used one or two of these examples on the modes thing. Gosh, there's not as many Mixolydian examples as I thought there would be.
There's plenty more. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But with my,
limited
library.
Time. Yeah.
But we all know the very ending. Hey Jude. So that's a D right here. This is a D.
It seems very popular, that D to C to G.
Yeah. And in those situations, we're going to talk about this in a second. We'll talk about it now. Because a similar progression is a Sweet Home Alabama.
Yeah.
Right, so... Whatever the hell.
Whatever.
But it is a D, again, C, and G. Now, you and I were talking about this, and I thought to myself, well, is this not in the key of G? Because
is it 5-4-1?
Is it not 5-4-1 in the key of G as opposed to 1-7-4 in the key of D?
Right.
So, what are your thoughts on this, Matt?
What are my thoughts on that?
Van Zandt singing it, he's not doing. I don't really hear a flat 7 in the melody. I don't believe.
And I'm not going to try to play that melody on the piano to figure it out.
Well, he's like very bendy and bluesy.
Very bendy and bluesy, yeah. I would like to hear the whole song because I think, maybe like the guitar solo or the vocal melody or other things like that might add some context.
Mm-hmm.
Going off the chord progression itself, if I'm just to do that, I don't know off the top of my head which one I would be more comfortable with. I feel as though when I'm in those situations, what I want to do is, try to feel like what feels like home. So, you ready to Does that feel like home?
In my head, it kind of does. That G note, that G chord.
Yeah. If I played it a little more homey. In my head, it kind of doesn't. I kind of want to... Right?
What was that last chord?
D.
Ah.
Oof. Yeah. Did that feel like home?
No, the one before it did. What was
really?
Yeah.
The one before it was D.
See, maybe it's just my perspective.
Maybe so. This can turn into some gray area. It's not a song that establishes a tonal center in a traditional way very well, no matter which one you choose, right? If you choose to say this song is in D, well, then this is D Mixolydian.
Yes.
We are absent a leading tone, and that is going to muddy the water as when we're trying to determine conclusively what key it is.
Mm-hmm.
If you think it's in G, 5 to 4 to 1 is what classical music theory would call a retrogression, and is generally thought of as bad. because you're going backwards around the circle of fifths. But that popular music, of course, does all the time.
Yes. The werewolf song.
Yeah.
Who we just determined he wrote that song just so he could go,
Yeah, well, it was a neat trick.
It was a neat trick. But anyway, back to Hey Jude. That's the same kind of progression we're talking about.
Yeah, this progression seems to be showing up in a lot of places, and I think it's probably going to have the same kind of issue in general. What about Hey Jude? Does the beginning of the song sort of more firmly establish a key, the verse and chorus?
Hey Jude, da-na-na-na.
That establishes D pretty. Yeah.
The A7 to D.
A7 to D, yeah. There's the key of D right there. Right? That's a 5/7 to 1, and that's going to establish D pretty quickly. So when you get to that part at the end, it is definitely going to sound like you're in D. And they just sort of shift to a D Mixolydian mode. You know, and
why would they do that?
Well,
Just to give it a little change of flavor.
A little change of flavor, but it also sort of sidestepping a need for a lot of finality, right? You know, I mean, if they had just kept on with D to A7, into the song, right? You know, there's a sense of finality to that by moving to. You can kind of keep this going forever.
Yeah. Which is what they do.
Which is kind of what they do.
I think I counted like all the nas in there at one point.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was, but it was ridiculous.
Yeah, if they had kept on with that A7, I can imagine that being not a neat, awesome, and unusual characteristic of this song that kind of code of material goes on forever, but more just really annoying. Like, why are you continuously ending this song over and over and over and over?
So right? One little note makes the difference between annoying and iconic.
Oh, one note can make all the difference in the world. Yeah. The difference between annoying and iconic can definitely be one chord, one note. Yeah, absolutely.
Remarkable.
Absolutely, yeah.
And before we move on to the Jeremy Torture section, I got one more recent example, actually. Lord. The song Royals, which I say recent, but I guess that's probably 5 or 6 years ago.
It's recent for us. When you reach our age, dear listeners, 5 years ago is recent. Okay,
it feels like 1 year.
5 years is recent.
The song Royals is really kind of centered in D. You know, the intro. And then, I guess during the chorus. I don't know the words, and I don't care.
It's the same chord progression.
In fact, it is. In fact, with the same chords. So
we need to be doing a podcast just on this chord progression.
I guess we are.
I guess we kind of are.
But all that to say that it seems to be a good indicator that if you are in an established key, for example, now we're in D, and instead of going to a C sharp diminished, which I'm not even positive I can.
That sounded pretty good.
And instead of that, we're actually going to the C. So that seems to be an indication that you might be in a modal piece. Although some argue, Matt, that these pieces are really considered tonal,
right,
and not modal, just because of that. Because we're using chords that still, I guess, sound and feel pretty good together. Mixolydian is not so far off from the Ionian Mode.
Not very far off at all, and yet, as we've said, one note can make an entire bit of difference. The one note difference happens to be an extraordinarily important note. So it boils down to your definition of what tonal is. And, now that might sound like a bit of a cop-out, but I tell you, There is more than one way to define what we consider to be tonal.
Oh, yeah?
It's one of those things that everybody thinks they know what they mean, but if you got 5 people in the room and asked them to define it, you would get 5 different definitions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, is Hey Jude tonal or modal? Is Sweet Home Alabama tonal or modal? It depends on how you define these things.
Yeah.
If you define tonal as using chords that are derived from notes of a scale, then yes, that is tonal. Now, my word for that is diatonic.
Yes.
Whenever you are taking the notes of a scale and using those notes to make chords, kind of forsaking all others or whatever, then that is diatonic. And I think, all of these pieces are unquestionably diatonic.
Yes.
Which is tonal is a type of, let's not say that. Let's not say tonal is a type of diatonic.
The definitions are foggy, aren't they?
The definitions are foggy, yeah, as that was coming out of my mouth. I clamped it. It's like, well, no. Because there are plenty of tonal pieces that are far from diatonic, that are pulling in chromatic notes, right?
Yeah. You don't want to theorize yourself into a corner over there.
I try not to. I won't pretend it's never happened, but the proverbial painted myself into a corner, definitely. So in that sense, I think they are unquestionably diatonic. Are they also tonal? Another definition of tonal is the notion of a tonal center. Mm. Now, when we were messing around just a minute ago with, was it Sweet Home? They all have the same chord progression.
Pick any of those 3.
Yeah, we observed ourselves that this G chord feels like home to you and feels less like home to me.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted home to be, there to the extent that I feel like there is a home.
Yeah.
So the reason we have this difference of perception is because a tonal center is not defined very well, right? Whichever one you want to say is home, it's hard. You can definitely make the argument as we did, or as I did, that this chord progression is not clearly concerned with establishing a tonic, right? So to me, that is an argument for modality.
Yes,
because modes have a weaker sense of moving strongly to a tonic than the major scale does. That's kind of why the major scale sort of took over in classical music. Is because this music is really all about progressing towards the tonic chord, and when you reach it, the piece of music is over. So to do that, you really need this half step away to feel final. And if you can get this moving a step down to the third, even better. We like it so much that when we took the minor scale, we said, well, no, we've got to raise that seventh to make harmonic minor, from the word harmony, right? So that we can have that thing to make it more tonal.
That push.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Matt. Is the major scale the only one that has a leading tone scale degree 7? Or is it, does Lydian have that as well?
Lydian is going to have that as well. Yes, okay. And that would be the 2. That would be the 2 where there's a half step falling right there before the octave.
So in the case of Lydian, you do have the leading tone scale degree, but you don't have this 5, this proper perfect fifth.
Then you don't have the other big requisite for a traditional tonal harmony, which is a perfect fifth.
So Anything that doesn't have both of those things to me feels more modal than tonal
Feels
or diatonic.
feels more of a mode because it establishes the tonal center less. And of course, this is not quote unquote bad per se. This is just sort of different approaches to creating music. Right? Yes. Do I want this to be important in my music, or do I not? But yeah, so that's another argument towards modal to me, is that the tonal center is not defined very well.
Right. I like that.
Yeah. The other big definition of tonality is what we stuffy music nerds might call sort of a Shankarian definition, which is, a piece of music following the strict laws of counterpoint, as we said, progresses from a tonic chord in which scale degree 3 is the supreme kind of functioning melodic note, and moves towards a tonic chord that is in root position. Moves towards a 5, which then resolves, over the grand scheme of the whole piece. It's a big, deep, kind of highly philosophical, abstract theory. But that is yet another definition of tonality, and these songs definitely don't do that, right? Which is yet another argument towards sort of modal, right? So I'm getting a lot of modal arguments, for these, and not a lot of tonal arguments. Really, the only tonal argument I'm thinking of is the fact that these are chords that go good together. But in my mind, that's not sufficient to meet the definition tonal. Right? A lot of things sound good together.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, anything that sounds good, that you hear together enough, will sound good together.
That's true.
I mean, I can play a C minor chord and E flat major chord together.
Oh.
That kind of sounds good together, right?
Yeah.
You heard it at the same time, so it sounded good to you, right?
Strangely, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. That was just two random chords that I.
One thing I do want to say before we get into my Jeremy torture is somebody mentioned that most of Jerry Garcia's solos are in Mixolydian.
I'm sure that's true.
It might be. I can't prove that because he's done a lot of solos
right.
over time.
Yeah.
But it does seem to be a forgiving and with a little bit of wiggle room kind of thing to mess around with, even if you're in major.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and also, again, the flat 7 is a note that is in the blues scale and is also a part of the pentatonic, I want to say, too.
Major pentatonic?
Yeah.
No,
or maybe
minor,
the minor
pentatonic.
Yeah. The minor pentatonic, it's there. So, and these are two big tools for guitar solos, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of guitar soloing that's going to have that flat 7, and a lot of music written around that's going to feel Mixolydian mode because they're taking chords based off notes of the minor pentatonic and the blues scales.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right.
Deep, huh?
It is. So, and that's just the Mixolydian mode. Oh boy, what's going to happen on Locrian? That's going to be the last one we do.
Ooh, yeah.
That's going to be the last one we do for sure.
That's a messed up mode.
Yeah. The red-headed step mode. Okay, so we'll try and do maybe 3 or so listens, three or so melodies, examples.
3 melodies, yeah.
3 or 4 listens apiece. Hopefully,
3 or 4 listens apiece, yeah.
Hopefully it doesn't take much more than that.
Let's hope not.
If we have time, we'll do 3 or 4 or 5, but we'll probably hopefully get at least 3 here.
There's honestly not a lot that 5 melodies all in Mixolydian mode. There's not going to be a lot of variation.
That's all right with me. Okay, so I have here a metronome. Last time I realized that I was having I was kind of struggling, kind of counting in my head to your melodies and also I was also kind of conducting a little bit, and I had a hard time actually focusing on the notes themselves and the rhythms, which is apparently one of my weak points.
Yeah.
Weaknesses. So this time around, I have this little app called TE Tuner, Tonal Energy Tuner, and what I don't like about it is I'm opening up and it says, "Good afternoon, let's get started." But if I open it up past midnight, it says, "Hello, night owl. Let's get started." I'm like, hey, I know I'm a
Stop
night.
trying to be cute, app.
Yeah, I know I'm a night owl. Don't you tell me. Judging my circadian rhythms. But this does have a metronome on it. It's a crutch, but in this laboratory-like setting. I'm hoping we can utilize this, and I'm hoping it'll help. We'll see.
We'll see.
We'll try it for this episode. If it becomes an annoyance, we won't do it again. Okay, you ready?
Yes.
I think I'm ready. What meter is this in?
So we're going to be in 3/4.
3/4. I'm changing that on my little app here. 3/4.
And we are going to be in F-Mixolydian.
Oh, wow. See, now I have to be thinking about the key signature, don't I?
Yeah, so what is the key signature of F-Mixolydian?
Well, I know that the Mixolydian mode is based on the scale degree 5 of the Ionian mode, aka the major scale.
Right.
So if I want to say what is F the 5 of,
Right.
which is B flat,
Right.
that should give me the
Key signature. B flat and E flat.
So I'm going to put down a little B flat and a little E flat in my first measure, 3/4. And also while I'm here charting the rhythms or trying to notate the rhythms, I'm kind of also paying attention to the contour and the overall feel of the melody, where it goes, its movement. So let's try. Shall we try and do this metronome and see how it works?
Okay, let's try.
Okay, so maybe we'll have 2 measures of 3 or however many you think is necessary.
Yeah, I was doing 4 measures of 3.
Okay.
All right.
So here we go. With our metronome, maybe we'll do a few measures and then we'll get into it here.
Okay.
And 1, 2, 3, 2,
2, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Okay, while it's still in my head, I'm going to kind of chart the overall movement. The melody kind of goes up and then down and then back up and then further down and then back to where it began. Okay. So now I'm going to kind of think about the rhythms here. I'm hearing a 1, 2, 3, da, 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 da. Is that what I was hearing?
Yeah.
So I'm just going to kind of over at the top of the measure, I'm going to put down the rhythms here.
Okay.
First note, quarter note. Second note, there's going to be a string of eighth notes here. Okay. Very good. 1 quarter note, 3 eighth notes, and maybe this last, what I thought was an eighth note, is actually a quarter note.
Mm-hmm.
Da, 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 da. Okay. But then I already forgot what happened on the second measure. So, one more time, I guess.
Want to listen to it again? Okay.
So here we go.
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3. Okay. And the second measure is just 3 quarter notes.
Sounds like it, yeah.
And then... Dun, 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 dun. And this... I feel more busyness in the third measure, but I'm not exactly sure where everything's landing here. Well, on the fourth measure, I think we have ourselves a whole note.
Well, it'd be a dot and a half.
It would be a dot.
Engage theory brain.
Engage math brain. Okay, so I feel like this last note. Okay, so here's what I think I got rhythmically.
Okay.
First measure, quarter note, 2 eighth notes, quarter note.
Mm-hmm.
That equals 3
Mm-hmm.
quarter notes. Second measure, 3 quarter notes.
Mm-hmm.
Third measure, I think we have a quarter note, and then 2 eighth notes,
Mm-hmm.
and then possibly that similar pattern.
Same rhythm?
Same rhythm as the
Oh,
first
look
measure.
at that.
Very nice of you. So third measure, quarter note, 2 eighth notes, and then a quarter note. And then the last measure, a dotted half note.
Yeah.
So I got the rhythms here.
Okay.
Now, I guess I need to determine the starting note.
We do need to determine the starting note. Remember your key. Sounds like do.
Yeah. because I couldn't really count down from it.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to write down a little F quarter note right here. And then we shall give another listen, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm actually going to try and slow this down just a little bit. We're at 87.97. I'm going to cheat this baby down to 80. Okay, here we go. Okay. 1, 4, 3, 1, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so first measure, we've decided we're an F Mixolydian, so and we've decided that first note is tonic, or scale degree 1, and then we hear like a na 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 na, 3, 2, 1. So F, A, G, F. Na 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 na. And then I think the next one we go down lower. And that actually might be that 7, that flat 7.
Might be.
So let's just think about that. I'm going to put down this this little E note, this E flat right here. Na 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 na. And I think it wants to go back up to that F on that other quarter note. I might actually need to hear this again at this point. My memory is bad. Okay. Ready? 2, 3, 2, 3. Okay. Na 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 na. Okay, so second measure, and just to be clear, the first measure we had the F quarter note, A eighth note, moving down to G eighth note, landing on an F quarter note. Next measure, I hope you guys are writing this down as I do this because it's just going to sound stupid otherwise and cumbersome. Second measure, we have 3 quarter notes, and I think that this first quarter note is actually going to be that E flat, that's 7 scale degree, and then it pops up. It skips up, I think, a third to the G, and then back down to the F. So there's that second measure. E flat, G, F.
Yep.
And then the third measure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Mixolydian is tough, isn't it?
It's tougher than I thought.
You aren't as grounded.
No.
You don't have that same sense of a tonic note.
I don't have the luxury of counting up or down like I kind of did earlier.
You would if you're familiar enough with Mixolydian mode, but it is definitely it is definitely more challenging to do that because we don't have as strong a established tonic.
All right.
So you're going to have to rely on your interval recognition a little bit more.
Which is not so much.
We kind of feel like that's tonic, right? And this is down to...
Definitely, I think it's lower than that flat 7.
It is lower than that flat 7.
Is that a 1? Is that a 5? Is that
Sounds like a 5.
Yeah. So in F, that's going to be a C. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Na, 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 na.
Na na da da.
5, 6,
do.
5, 6, 7. And then 1.
And then 1.
Okay, so it ends on F, and then this other thing, C. Okay, so third measure we have C quarter note, eighth notes on D, E flat, and then F.
Yeah.
Am I missing a note?
Doesn't sound like it.
Is it just repeat that F and the third the fourth measure?
Well, it may repeat the C.
Oh, okay. That's what's going on. Okay, so strike that. Third measure, we have C quarter note, C eighth note, D eighth note, E flat eighth note.
Mm-hmm.
And then, or actually,
E flat quarter note.
E flat quarter note, yeah. And then we land on the F.
We land on the F.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. And it's funny because even though we ended on the F, to me, because that leading tone wasn't there, probably,
Yeah.
it didn't sound as complete.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So in my head, I was telling myself that it's not landing on the tonic. There's something weird going on at the end of that.
Yeah. I mean, if I had played that, if that had been F major, and we had a leading tone. See how more complete that sounded?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. So there's one example.
So there's one.
Shall I read this out one more time, or do I think
I think we kind of got it.
we got it? Okay. Hopefully you guys are writing this down as we go. Okay, moving on.
One more?
One more, sure.
Let's see. All right.
Okay, so give me a meter.
Let's be in 4/4.
Very good. I like 4/4. Treble clef, 4/4. Oh, and do we have a key, or do we have a
Let's
starting
be
note?
in C Mixolydian.
C Mixolydian? Okay, C is the 5 of what key? F.
Sound F, right? Yeah.
So in the key signature, we're going to put the F key
We're
signature.
gonna plug it, yeah, which is 1 flat.
1 flat. As we know from our order of sharps and flats. Big
At least it was the last time I checked.
Yeah. All right. Okay. I think I am... Oh, and then I guess I need to know the starting note, right?
Yeah, let's make the starting note C. Or actually, let's make the starting note G.
We're starting on 5.
Yep.
Okay. So this first listen, I'm going to focus on the rhythms again.
Okay, yeah.
You ready?
Yes.
Or am I ready is the question.
Is the question.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. Okay. I hear a rhythmic sequence, actually. That's going to help out a little bit.
Yep.
First measure I have, and again, we're in 4/4.
Uh-huh.
I have 2 quarter notes
Uh-huh.
and then a half note.
Uh-huh.
Second measure, same dealio.
Uh-huh.
2 quarter notes and a half note.
Right.
Third measure, they got a little more busy, and I think I will need another listen to get the third and fourth measure
Okay.
for the rhythms.
All right.
So, and then all this time I'm focusing on the rhythms. Subconsciously, the melody is kind of
hopefully getting into your brain a little.
eating into my shriveled little brain. Okay, you ready?
Yes.
Second listen. Dun, dun, da, 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 da. 1, 2, 3, 4, and okay.
Mm-hmm.
So third measure, I'm gonna have 3 quarter notes and 2 eighth notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, and
Mm-hmm.
then the final measure, just 3, 2 quarter notes and a half note.
Yes.
Which I think we've heard that before. That sequence,
Yeah, so there's only one measure that's even different.
which is great for me. Okay, I have the
right.
rhythms. That's great.
Now, notes.
Yeah, and we're starting note is G.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go in the key of C Mixolydian. Okay, here we go. I believe I'm hearing an arpeggio in the first measure. What I'm thinking might be a G major arpeggio. That was a funny sound you made over there. But let's just see. I'm hearing no, no, no.
You're definitely hearing an arpeggio.
But it might not be the one I'm thinking it is. So.
Well, we did this at one point, determining inversions and chords. So where is the fourth? If there is no fourth, then it's maybe a G major arpeggio.
Oh, can we hear that one more time then? Just those 3 notes? That sounds like a G major. Or is that an inversion? Is that a first inversion? Was that a major? Was that a perfect fourth at the very beginning?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Okay. So actually, I think I heard a perfect fourth in there, which is funny. So we know that the starting note is G.
Yes.
And then we have a perfect fourth up. So actually, this is actually starting to sound like a C major arpeggio.
Starting to sound like it.
Okay, so first measure. 2 quarter notes and a half note.
Mm-hmm.
First 2 quarter notes, G, C, and E.
Mm-hmm.
Now, next measure, we had the same rhythmic pattern, and I really do feel like it started off on that same note.
Mm-hmm.
Dun, dun, dun. But then the material afterwards sounds just a little bit lower.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering if this might actually be our G major arpeggi, but it might not be.
Well, G major?
Oh, that would be a G minor in the Mixolydian
Right,
thing, wouldn't
yeah.
it? Okay. So yeah, and that did feel darker.
Mm-hmm.
So that would make sense. So even though I wrote down here all thirds, I should take into account this B flat here.
Yeah.
So we got a G, a B flat, and a D for the second measure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. After all that yapping, I've lost focus on what the third measure was. So shall we give it a third listen?
Yes.
For that third measure. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Mm-hmm. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. I'm thinking this last measure is a Mixolydian movement of sorts.
Mm.
And then, okay, so let's just focus on the third measure, though. I tend to kind of jump around, which I don't know if that's a good thing or not.
Well, you have to find the process that works best for you. If it works best to kind of jump around a little bit, write down what sounds obvious to you, and then focus on the less obvious stuff, then do that.
Very cool. Well, let's talk about this third measure then. We have what I think is the same material from the first measure, the first part of the first measure, which is actually going to be a quarter note G, moving up to a quarter note C, moving up to an E, all quarter notes, and then there's a 2 eighth notes that happen here.
Yes.
That move down back to the C is what I think it's doing.
Yeah.
So I think that this E, this third note E, is followed by another E, which is now an eighth note, moving down to D, also an eighth note, and then moving to the fourth measure, which is just going to be a C to a B flat to a C, quarter note C, quarter note B flat, half note C.
Yeah. So, to recap.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Yeah, nice and easy.
Nice and easy. Okay.
All right, so this time let's be in 6/8.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. 6/8, and then have we picked a key, I guess?
Let's
would I
be
say
in
that, a
G
key or a
Mixolydian.
G Mixolydian. Okay. Again, my thought process is being, what is G the fifth of? Oh, great. G is the 5 of C, so we have no sharps or flats in the key signature.
We're doing okay, yeah.
Yeah, great. And then 6/8, huh?
Uh-huh.
6/8 is a funny time signature because there's been times where I've been playing music with people and I was pretty sure, I was like, hey, this sounds like 6/8, right?
Yeah.
I think of 6/8 like a jig time kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think some people also use it almost as close to a waltz. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah.
Closer to an upbeat waltz.
It depends on your tempo.
Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does depend on the tempo. Well, what? Let me play this tempo. This is 80 BPM.
Mm-hmm.
Is that fast?
That's pretty fast.
You want to try 60 BPM?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. I like the way this thing has a little accent on the
Yeah.
bigger accent on the 1, the smaller on the 4.
Yeah.
All right, now I'm a little scared. But let's see what happens. And then can we get that starting note?
The starting note is G.
Okay. Which is kind of be the 1.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now I'm going to listen to those rhythms first.
Okay.
Getting busy here.
Ready?
Okay, here we go. Huh, okay. All right. The rhythmic pattern I think I'm hearing here.
Mm-hmm.
First measure. And now we have to get involved with some of this dotted stuff, I think. Or maybe actually a half note. Done. Okay, so this first note I think is actually going to... I said half note, I meant quarter note.
Right, yeah.
This first note is going to be a quarter note.
Uh-huh.
And then followed just by 4 eighth notes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the first measure. Oh, is that... That's not on the and of 2.
Yeah. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2.
So funny things are happening here. I'm having to get into these more complex rhythms or note writing that I don't like to do, but I'm going to have to do it. This first note here lasts a little bit longer than the average eighth note, but a little bit shorter than the average quarter note.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it feels like a dotted eighth note.
Mm-hmm. Fairly common in 6/8 time.
Yeah. Okay. So a dotted eighth note. That leaves room for 4 more eighth notes and a 16th note.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I think that next up is the 16th note.
That would make rhythmic sense.
Mm-hmm. And then 4 more eighth notes.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first measure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think I heard a similar sequence possibly in the next measure, but maybe I should listen one more time to
Okay.
get those rhythms down.
Mm-hmm.
Second listen. Here we go for those rhythms. Da, 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 da. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Da 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 da. Right?
Mhm.
Okay. So second measure, I think we got ourselves actually a quarter note, and then something quicker than a quarter note.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps that is an eighth note.
Perhaps that is an eighth note.
We'll call that an eighth note, and then the following note, rather than a quarter note, will actually be a dotted quarter note.
Yeah.
Does that take care of our other?
I think
beats?
so.
Okay. And then, so third measure, I'm going to call this a quarter note. 1, 2, 3. No, a dotted quarter note.
Mm-hmm.
And then 3 more eighth notes.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last measure. Da, da, da. I can't remember what it was. I just can't remember it. Da, da, da. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, quarter note, eighth note, quarter note, dotted quarter note. So that is the same kind of pattern in the second measure.
Sort of, yeah.
Isn't it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so rhythms, here we are. First
Okay.
measure, we got ourselves a crazy little dotted eighth note, followed by a 16th note, followed by 4 eighth notes.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be 6 notes,
Mm-hmm.
6 beats. Not 6 notes, 6 beats.
Right.
Second measure, we have ourselves a slightly longer quarter note here, followed by an eighth note, and then an even longer dotted quarter note.
Yes.
Third measure, we have ourselves a lengthy little dotted quarter note, followed by 3 eighth notes.
Right.
And then finally, the last measure, we have ourselves a quarter note, an eighth note, and then a dotted quarter note.
Yes.
All right, there's our rhythms.
Yeah.
Third listen, we'll get the. Go ahead and try and work on these notes here.
Okay.
Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Starting note G, huh?
Yep.
All right. Ha. All right. This starting, obviously dotted eighth note is going to be a G. I think it just goes up to the 2 and back down again.
Yeah.
This next note will be the 16th note following my dotted G. Eighth note will in fact be an A. And then back down to G for this eighth note, moving down, since we're in Mixolydian, to an F, and then down again to an E. Na, 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 na. I want to say that at the top of the second measure, we're back on G.
Yeah.
So what happens? What has to happen to make that happen? Na, 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 na. Am I missing a note here? No. Yeah, buddy. All right. So first measure. We got ourselves first note G dotted, eighth note, second note A, 16th note, moving down to back to G, and then further down. These are all eighth notes. G, F, E, and then back up to F, and then landing on G on the top of the second measure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Was that what it was?
Yeah.
1, 2, 1.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the second measure is merely a quarter note G followed by an eighth note A, followed by a dotted quarter note G. Wonderful. That gets us halfway through. Okay, I think I need to listen again for these last 2 measures.
Okay.
Got my little metronome ready here. And... I can just figure out what this note is. Na, na, na.
Ah,
3,
look at
2, 1. Okay. Na, na, na. Of course, I lost it just then. But I will put this first note down as a B. Just to be natural. Can I hear that one more time?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Na, 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 na. Okay. Third measure. B for the dotted quarter note. And again a B for these last 3 eighth notes. B, A, G. Write it down. And then this last measure is actually going to be 7, 7, 1. In this case, F, F, G.
Yeah.
So a quarter note on 7, F, another quarter note on F, and then finally a quarter note on G.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I got it. after so many tries. You guys don't even know how many I've edited out here. But Lord knows I'm trying. On the next episode we do about melodic dictation, I'm going to try and have found a really good article on melodic, trying to learn melodies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice on that kind of thing before we get out of here?
Get the rhythms first.
Uh-huh.
Keep tonic stuck in your brain.
Yeah.
Always be able to listen to tonic and be able to know where tonic is. Because if you know where your tonic is, you can orient yourself to the other pitches of the scale.
Mm-hmm.
If you all know where tonic and dominant is, then you're really ahead of the game.
Yeah.
Also, listen for function.
Function.
There is even when you're listening to a melody, there's a shift when you move to something that would be harmonized by a different chord, right? Right? This it has a different sound to it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So, am I really in? Would I really be in the same chord there, or have I switched? That can keep you from making mistakes. Where you just rather you're just trying to hit interval after interval. Think about what chord might be being implied here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When you're doing traditional major and minor melodic dictation, that's even more helpful.
Uh-huh.
Because it can keep you from going to scale degree 5 and what was going on was a 4 chord. So, listen for function.
Yeah.
Listen to see if you can hear tonic, predominant, and dominant function.
Mm-hmm.
And that will help. Be sure about your answers. If you don't know where an interval is falling, don't try to guess. Orient yourself to the tonic that you hear.
Mm-hmm.
Those are my biggest, and practice. Those are my biggest pieces of advice.
And while you're practicing, I imagine this might be a good thing to do. Say we're in the key of C.
Mm-hmm.
There's my tonic. So in my head, I'm going to sing this note even when I go to 4. But it still fits in 4, that's okay. But when I go to G5,
Yeah.
I'm still singing this note, and it's really kind of weird and uncomfortable. But now I'm back on C.
Yeah.
Back on 1, so I'm singing this one note while I'm playing all these other chords over it, but I'm still clinging on to it tenaciously as I can.
Yeah. It's a in the back of your mind kind of a thing.
Yeah, right. I just sang, but it's kind of a portrayal of what's going on in your head.
Sure. Right. Yeah. And then you can orient other notes around yourself to that.
Right. So if I'm playing, or another way would be if I'm playing the C again, but I decide. That's still a C.
That's still C.
Okay, so what if I want to use the third? Oh, that's tough. That's a 3 note over the 4 chord.
Yeah.
It pushes you. It wants to push you up.
Yeah, I can always find that tonic, right?
Yeah. That's quite lovely, man.
Yeah, well, I'm always, when I hear that tonic, I can always get back to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to inform me what note I'm on.
So know your tonic.
Know your tonic.
Not really much of a review to speak of, since this was all kind of just ear training.
Practice,
kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But listen again if you like.
Definitely do so.
I will.
We'll see you soon.
Yeah.
By now, we hope you are truly immersed in the Mixolydian mode. Keep listening if you want to learn more about melody. And tell your friends about us. And if you have questions or comments, send them to info@musicstudent101.com.